Hello, this is Tony from the Fraser Museum, and I find myself again for History Around Us in the Temple Cemetery. I look at it as an honor sometimes to be able to research into the lives of people who've passed, but who've changed the world in some way, shape, or form, who've left a legacy. And behind me is the grave of a woman who certainly did leave a legacy. Her name is Jennie Maas Flexner. I hadn't heard the name before I did some of this research, and I find it very interesting. She, speaking to one of the exhibits that we have open presently at the Fraser about women's suffrage, she was, in fact, a suffragist here in Louisville. She was born in 1882, and in the early 1900s, she was the vice chair of a committee with the National American Women's Suffrage Association. And she was very instrumental in helping to organize and bring together the conference, the national conference that met here in Louisville in 1911. She was born in 1882. Her parents were Rosa and Jacob was known, he was a physician here in Louisville. In fact, as far as I can tell, he was the very first medical practitioner here in Louisville to use the antitoxin for diphtheria. Her uncle, Abraham Flexner, was known, or is known, for his Flexner Report. He was active in the educational community and is responsible for much of the changes in higher education at the college level, particularly in medical schools. But back to Jennie, she was best known for her work in libraries. When she was 24, her mother, I suppose, fortuitously met with a friend of hers asking on her behalf if perhaps there was a position for someone who was energetic and didn't have a lot of experience. And that person suggested there was a secretarial job open at the Louisville Free Public Library. Now, I want to remind you that the libraries back a long time ago, in the early 1900s, were not quite the same as they are today. Imagine, if you will, when you walk in, there would be a desk perhaps, and you ask the librarian to go get you a book. You have to fill out a slip, and then they would get you books. This is not the case now. Naturally, we can check for books online, and we can go and just, there they are for us, or we can peruse the aisles of books in the shelves. Back then, that was not the case, but they were making that change. And a lot of people didn't quite know how to do that. It was a new experience. And so when Jennie Flexner started with the Louisville Free Public Library, one of the things that she focused on was how to make that simpler for the average everyday person. And so she was instrumental in changing how libraries deal with the patrons. She believed that libraries and books in libraries should be accessible for everyone, regardless of nationality or ethnicity. And she was instrumental in helping to train some of the African American librarians for the newly opened, at that time, Western Library Branch. Now, if you aren't familiar with this, the Western Library Branch here in town, funded by the Carnegie Foundation, or the Carnegie family, it is the first, to my knowledge, the first library entirely staffed by and entirely focused on the African American population. So the staff was all African American, as were most of the patrons. Now, beyond that, she went, after spending 16 years here, kind of changing Louisville's library system. She wrote a book, a textbook that is used, or was used for quite a long time, in teaching everyone, all librarians, how their jobs could be better and more efficient. But she went and she worked at the New York Public Library. And that's where she really, really took off, because the New York Public Library was looking for a new position, a new style of interacting with the public. And what they came up with was called the Reader's Advisory Service, the Reader's Advisory Service. It was a small room in the main branch of the New York Public Library. Small room off on the side, but many people visited there, partly because of her temperament and the way she interacted with people. Jennie Maas Flexner was a staunch supporter of helping the immigrants and refugees that were coming to America during World War II. And she was on the board of several organizations that their job and their mission was to help those immigrants. Ms. Flexner also was an advocate of making lists. I think perhaps that was the most efficient way to do this. There were so many branches, and she had trained many people to do this Reader's Advisory Service, but there were so many branches that perhaps one of the easier ways to do this was to make reading lists. And this is early on in library history that has reading lists. She made a book list called Interpreting America, which was used all across America in libraries. She worked closely with the National Refugee Service. So what you see when you look at Ms. Flexner's legacy is someone who was very much in support of equality, in support of equal access to educational materials, and in support of librarians being someone who was not standoffish, rather someone who worked with you to find the right materials, the materials that you definitely wanted to look for. And there are quotes of people who so greatly admired her. I don't think I ever knew a person who was such a clear and transparent channel between greatness and humanity. I don't know if you can say it better than that. Jennie Maas Flexner was a teacher, a librarian, and changed the world. Libraries are partly the way they are. Thank you to Jennie Maas Flexner. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you very much for tuning in. Please, we hope to see you soon at the Fraser. Have a wonderful day.